Well, at first, it should have been a reportage, like a video reportage, a 10-minute piece on how the Romanian government was preparing to declare this abandoned landfill, garbage dump, basically, quite close to the middle of the city, and into a natural reservation, giving it the highest protection, like environmental protection status that there is in our country. It's like the virgin forest of Transylvania has the same, status. So it was quite an interesting story. As I lived just a few streets away from the place, and I never went inside, and nobody that I know ever went inside. There were all these like urban legends about how killers are hiding there, and the wild dogs, and you can get mugged or murdered or raped or whatever. So nobody would go there. And this was actually interesting, because this is how nature took over the place, being inaccessible for people, and with people throwing their garbage around the place, nobody would go inside. So this is how this amazing ecosystem was formed there for the last 30 years, gathering some of the rarest birds and animals and plants that there are in Europe. And when they discovered it, of course, these things made the news, and this is how I've heard about the new plan for the place. So we went there with my partner and the screenwriter of the film, with Linaptovi. We went, and we just started making interviews with the authorities, with the people living around, and we vaguely knew about the family living there. We weren't sure that they're still there, because Jika, the father of the children, was a local, the neighborhood hero. In 2012, he saved some kids from a burning house. So all the local media wrote about his heroism, and he got burned, and and this is how we knew about this family, but there wasn't much about them in the media or whatever. And doing these interviews with the authorities, and searching the place, we came across two of the boys, and they were very curious, and they introduced us to their father. And what I considered still one of the privileges of making this film was that the father was already working with the campaigners that pulled off the protection status, and he was their man on the ground. He informally he was working as a fixer for the scientists that would come to study the place, or for the journalists that would come to write and promote the place, and so on. So we were just another journalistic team that would come for a few days, and he would take us with his boat and tell us some nice stories about the place, and that should have been it. Apart from the fact that we became fascinated by the relationships between the brothers, and their relationship with nature, which was something quite unique, considering that 400 meters away from that place, there's like the expensive shopping streets, the city center of Bucharest. So it was quite an image to have, and it was also something that, we also realized that the story needs to be properly researched and properly phrased, let's say, as it had all the elements of a exotic tabloid story, and we have few experiences with that as Romanian journalists, working abroad a lot, and knowing how things work with these kinds of stories that sometimes, if not most of the times, are being used by different political agendas in order to discredit an ethnicity, nationality, and so on. So obviously we had to make sure that we get things right in these circumstances, the circumstances of a hugely exotic story. And yeah, we were planning to film with them until they would be evicted, because it was pretty clear that they wouldn't live there anymore, as the environmental law is very strict with you know, like humans living in fragile ecosystems. And we thought that's going to be like a few months. It turned out to be 2 years. So so we stayed for another 2 years with them until they got out. And when we saw them for the first time interacting with the other children in the city, and how dramatically different they're becoming in this new reality, we decided to go and to go forward with this and film for another 2 years. So in total we filmed, yeah, so in total we filmed for 4 years. And we didn't know necessarily that we're going to film for such a long time. It was just a matter of getting the story right, and protecting our characters as much as we can. Well, you know, transformation is part of our lives, and this is the what makes life tragic in a lot of ways. You know, like our coming of age on our, you know, like in different stages of our life seem dramatic, seem tragic. You know, although, you know, there's always light at the end of the bridge, and changes and transformations are always necessary for us to stay healthy in our minds, in our souls, and so on, in our relationships with others, and so on. And I think this protecting, if you mean like conserving, there's always have to be this. It's I believe in that light comes out of balancing our need to conserve the things that keep us together with our need to progress, to transform ourselves, to adapt to. So it's all about it's all about compromising, let's say, a bit of both. And this is what it means to be an adult. This is the true tragic thing about being an adult, isn't it? We all want to conserve our freedom, our care, our childhood, you know, but it's not possible in this world that we built. So we have to make it work somehow. So I think this is, for me, it has always been a story about this, about the coming of age of a son that understands that you know, the very conservative ways of living life imposed by his father aren't working for him anymore, because he has another path, he has another life to build. And so yeah. It is weird, but it's like it's at the core of the story. It has always been like that, you know, from our first encounters with the family. There were, you know, like, the place was breathtaking and beautiful, and you know, but it had its dangers, as well as you know, like you know, the kids in many ways were in harm, because they were isolated by you know, healthcare and education and so on. So there was all these buts from the beginning, you know. Yes, it's nice to see them all together in one bed, and it's a loving feeling to sleep, you know, like in the arms of your brothers and sisters. But it's never okay for 9 children to live to have to sleep like that or live like that, you know. So there's always like buts, you know. And I'm not saying it was easy. I think it was the hardest part of the editing process, which took us around 2 years. So it was because it was so easy to slide on one, you know, like one side or another, you know. Or the father, and as you mentioned, you know, like, he is a true patriarch. He is, you know, it's so easy to hate him, especially for me, that I come from a quite patriarchal culture and family, as well as I became to despise when I was a teenager and so on. But at the end of the day, for the father, for example, he took all these decisions out of the fear that his sons and his loved ones would suffer, like he did, right after he decided to isolate himself and to leave the city. So it was a process for us to, you know, to understand how we can work on this very fine line in the edit, in telling the story without compromising the truths that we discovered in compromising them with our misconceptions, with our you know. So because it should have been about, and it was always about telling a story from within this family rather than a story from, you know, like about a family, which is always challenging. And but it gets, I think it gives us a more interesting, nuanced and rich, you know, like perspectives, which I think um, you know, like coming from journalism, you never have the time, and it's always the time pressure. This is the work of a journalist, you know, like you need to expose things in time. People have to know about the reality, urgent realities in you know, like around them, but you never have the opportunity to actually yeah, it's in the nature of the work. I'm not saying it's complementary. What we did here in filmmaking, you know, making a feature-length documentary, it's pretty much complementary with our work as investigative journalists. You know, like we, as investigative journalists, we always want to stay 4 more years, 3 more years, or 3 more months. But you know, like imagine learning about this pandemic in 4 years after, after a team of journalists understood the universe and told us how not to die. You know, so it's it's yeah. The park is currently going through some difficult times as the, you know, as the government changed in the last 4 years. There wasn't much interest in going forward with the management plan for the place, and this I mean, there is a tight team still working there and keeping things together as much as possible. But they need a lot of help to, you know, to protect and to preserve the area, because the area is also exposed to fires and poachers and so on, which are doing a lot of damage. Just a year ago, I think we've had a fire in the autumn that burned, I think 70% of the vegetation, which is, imagine that, it's huge. Luckily enough, didn't destroy the habitats, as most of the birds migrate and they weren't there, but still. So that could have been solved with just 2 or 3 police officers doing the rounds, and this is not happening yet. So there's still a struggle. It's still a process to yeah, to protect this place. And for the family, unfortunately, the father, Jikenake, passed away a few months ago, and everyone is still in shock. But luckily, we've you know, even during filming, we've started this social project that gathered a lot of people wanting to help the family have a smoother, less traumatic integration towards the city. So everybody, um, the whole community was, you know, activated when Jika passed away. So, you know, the children have everything they need. I think they own their own house right now. We managed to raise the funds a year ago to buy them a piece of place. Vali is still working in the park. Rika is working in the park as well as a tourist guide and a ranger, and they're all doing. I think they're all doing great in school. You know, like they're very much techno savvy right now, because they do online classes. So that's pretty exciting. computers and they have everything they need. So that's pretty exciting for them because they're finally allowed to stay on a computer like as much as they want. So exactly, now they have a few more computers and they can do that separately, and they can do that hopefully not during classes. But yes, yes. What I wanted to say is that they're normal children, and luckily they're they have a lot of people to take care of them. So I think the future is brighter for them than it would have been if the state would have taken care of them or so on. So I'm pretty proud, and we're all very grateful that the family is doing great. I'm yeah, I'm very glad, and I feel grateful that this film is being shown in your wonderful festival, and I hope people would get at least a few of the lessons that we've learned during these 4 years of making this film. And yeah,